survive, let alone compete. And honestly, you can kind of see why. They started with a grand total of just 2 aircraft. 2! They were flying to just a handful of destinations. They were the ultimate underdogs, facing intense financial pressure, huge operational challenges, and cutthroat competition from established global giants who, frankly, barely even noticed enough on its own to get passengers on your planes instead of your competitors' flights. So, instead of aggressively cutting costs and shrinking legroom like everyone else in the industry was doing, Emirates went the other way. They doubled down on the hardware. They made incredibly heavy investments in the massive Airbus A380 and the highly efficient Boeing 777.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into, well, honestly, one of the most wild corporate ascents in modern history. We're going to piece together exactly how a tiny desert startup came absolutely out of nowhere, took on the giant legacy titans of aviation, and basically conquered the skies. If you've ever wondered how a modern empire is built literally from scratch, this is a fascinating case study.
So, here's our flight plan for today. We're breaking this down into 4 quick chapters: the desert startup, the geographic cheat code, investing in the experience, and finally, the rise of Dubai. All right, let's start right here with $10 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. In the ultra-high-stakes world of global aviation, where a single plane can run you hundreds of millions of dollars, $10 million is practically pocket change. Yet, when the government of Dubai founded Emirates back in 1985, this surprisingly tiny budget was literally all they had to work with. I mean, it was a massive, almost absurd gamble.
Which brings us to Chapter 1, the desert startup.
Now, in the very beginning, the international aviation industry heavily doubted this project. People scoffed at the idea that a new airline from the Middle East could even survive, let alone compete. And honestly, you can kind of see why. They started with a grand total of just 2 aircraft. 2! They were flying to just a handful of destinations. They were the ultimate underdogs, facing intense financial pressure, huge operational challenges, and cutthroat competition from established global giants who, frankly, barely even noticed they existed.
So, how did they survive those brutal early days? Well, while other struggling airlines were frantically cutting costs and hyper-focusing on short-term profits just to, keep the lights on, Emirates made a massive strategic pivot. They focused entirely on long-term growth and sweeping global expansion. They weren't just playing to survive the year, they were playing the long game to own the future. Which naturally leads us to a multi-billion-dollar question. What was the actual secret behind this massive success? Because a bold mindset is great, sure, but you need a mechanical advantage to beat giants at their own game. What was the advantage that literally changed everything for Emirates? Let's get into Section 2, the geographic cheat code.
You see, Emirates realized they were holding a powerful card their competitors simply could not match, and that was location. By turning Dubai into one major centralized hub, they were sitting directly in the middle of 4 massive land masses: Europe, Asia, Africa, and America. They realized they could efficiently route passengers from anywhere to practically anywhere else. They didn't just fly people to Dubai, they flew the entire world through Dubai. This one central hub became the absolute bedrock of their global dominance.
Moving on to Section 3, investing in the experience.
Now, a great geographic location is awesome, but it isn't enough on its own to get passengers on your planes instead of your competitors' flights. So, instead of aggressively cutting costs and shrinking legroom like everyone else in the industry was doing, Emirates went the other way. They doubled down on the hardware. They made incredibly heavy investments in the massive Airbus A380 and the highly efficient Boeing 777. And this was a brilliant twofold strategy. First, it significantly reduced long-term operational costs, and second, the sheer design of these modern aircraft vastly improved passenger comfort. Think about your own past long-haul flights for a second. Often it's something you kind of just have to endure, right? Well, Emirates decided to make it something you actually actively enjoy. They introduced a genuinely premium experience. We're talking incredibly high-quality service, world-class in-flight entertainment systems that completely set new industry standards, and a level of unmatched luxury travel that made global headlines. These specific luxury features acted like a giant magnet, pulling in millions of weary travelers worldwide who are just absolutely desperate for a better way to fly.
And that brings us to Section 4, the rise of Dubai.
You simply cannot talk about the phenomenal success of this airline without connecting it directly to the breathtaking transformation of its home city. Unlike so many international airlines that have historically struggled financially, constantly filing for bankruptcy or merging just to survive, Emirates took a completely different path. They expanded internationally to become one of the world's most profitable airlines, period. They didn't just build a healthy balance sheet, they built an incredibly powerful global brand that is now totally synonymous with quality and ambition.
When you step back and look at the entire journey, the scale of it is just staggering. Founded in 1985 with a shockingly small $10 million and just 2 aircraft. During those early years, they stared down intense doubt and massive financial pressure. But then came the expansion era, leveraging that geographic cheat code to build the Dubai hub and physically connect continents. And today, they carry millions of passengers every single year, standing as one of the largest, most successful airlines in aviation history, and acting as the ultimate representation of Dubai's rapid rise as a global business and tourism center. So it leaves us with a pretty provocative question to ponder. Knowing the intense competition, the sheer capital required, and the insane strategic foresight it took for Emirates to pull this off, could a startup ever disrupt the skies like this again? It is fascinating to think about. I hope this explainer gave you a powerful new perspective on exactly how this tiny desert startup conquered the globe. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next one.